Let's talk about new Amazon employee compensation. First off, if you're watching this, I suppose either congratulations on your new job at Amazon or perhaps you're going through the hiring process. If you want to learn more about Amazon compensation, you have certainly come to the right place. Before we get started, just a very quick disclaimer. And moving right along. Right off the bat, there are really three ways in which Amazon employees are compensated. The first is base salary. This is really straightforward. This is simply your monthly paycheck. Not a whole lot to talk about there. The second is a year one and a year two on hire bonus. And then the third are restricted stock units or RSUs. These are the shares of Amazon stock that you receive as a new employee. Let's talk a little bit about how this plays out and look at a timeline to see how everything fits together here. Looking at a timeline of compensation, obviously you have your base salary not listed on the timeline, really straightforward, not a lot to talk about there. You're paid each and every month. On top of that, you've got your year one and year two on hire bonuses. Now, these, for all intents and purposes, you can think of it just like a paycheck, just like your regular base salary, not particularly complicated. If you're entitled to a year one on hire bonus of, let's just say $60,000, you're going to receive $5,000 per paycheck. Again, really straightforward. Now, the one thing worth noticing right here is that the year two on hire bonus is almost always a little bit smaller than that year one on hire bonus, which we'll talk about here in just a moment when we start looking at some real numbers. And then lastly, you have your restricted stock units or RSUs. These are the shares of Amazon stock that you're granted when you are hired. But again, remember, you don't actually receive these shares until the shares actually vest. Now, based on the current Amazon vesting schedule for a new hire, this means that you're going to receive 5% of your shares after year one, 15% of your shares after year two, and then 20% of your shares every 6 months. So 20% of those shares at 2.5 years, 3 years, 3.5 years, and 4 years. You'll also notice from this timeline when your RSUs vest and the fact that the size of these respective vests gets larger over time. If you found this helpful so far, would love it if you gave the video a quick like. It'll help others like you get a much better understanding of their benefits and compensation. Moving right along. I think it's helpful to put some actual numbers behind this to understand what this actually means and what do these percentage breakdowns look like. Now, obviously this is going to vary a lot whether you're coming in as a new hire at level 4 versus somebody else who's coming in at a level 6, 7, 8, you name it. So while these numbers are obviously going to be substantially different for you versus the next person, I think that at least the big picture idea is particularly important here. So Amazon's maximum salary, base salary, I should say, in 2021 outside of the Bay Area and greater New York City area is $160,000. So if you come in at a higher level, don't be surprised if you're not starting at $160,000. You might start at $150,000, $155,000. And really the reason for this is it gives the manager a little bit of flexibility down the road to give you a little bit of a raise if you're doing a great job. It's not the case that the manager says, well, hey, sorry, you've done a spectacular job, but I can't give you a raise because you're already at that max salary. So it very well could be the case that you start at, just say, $150,000, and then next year you get bumped up to $155,000, and then let's just say in year 3 and 4 you get bumped up to that $160,000 maximum base salary. And then you're going to receive your restricted stock units. Now, in this example, we're going to assume that somebody was entitled to $600,000 worth of restricted stock at their initial hire. As I mentioned earlier, at the end of the first year, you only receive 5% of that initial grant. And so in this case, that would be $30,000 of stock at the end of the first year. At the end of the second year, you're going to receive 15%. In this case, that would be $90,000 in stock. And then each 6-month time period after that, you're entitled to 20% of your initial grant. So after 6 months, if the price has not changed, and again, we're talking about 2.5 years in here, you're entitled to $120,000 in stock. At the end of the third year, $120,000 in stock. 3.5 years in, $120,000 in stock. And at the end of the fourth year, another $120,000 in stock, assuming the price has not changed. So you'll also notice that in years 3 and 4, in aggregate, you're going to receive 40% of that initial grant. And that's going to add up to, in this scenario, $240,000 of vesting grants. Another quick thing to note, all of these numbers obviously are gross. Amazon is going to withhold money for taxes from your salary, from stock grants, and from the on-hire bonus. Now, you'll notice that there's a pretty big difference between those first 2 years and those second 2 years if we just take base salary and grants into account. And that's why we see this on-hire bonus being awarded essentially to make up that gap in total compensation in the first couple of years while you're an Amazon employee. Typically, you're going to see that first year on-hire stock award is going to be a little bit bigger than the second year, which we see here in the graphic. And again, that's because in the second year, you've got 10% more of your stock vesting. You also notice right off the bat that as an Amazon employee, more of your compensation year 1 and 2 is fixed. And so more of it's going to be based on just base salary and that on-hire award. The longer you're at Amazon, though, particularly year 3 and 4, much more of your compensation is variable and tied directly to the price of Amazon stock. So obviously, if Amazon does really, really well, well, then you're going to benefit in a big way, and you might get paid more than you initially thought that you were going to get paid, particularly in years 3 and 4. But if Amazon stock price doesn't do as well, well, then you might see your total compensation remain relatively flat, or if the stock price drops, you could even see your total compensation go down by a little bit. Feel free to add me on LinkedIn. I tend to post a lot of information related to Amazon benefits. I've got all of my information right over there. Really, what I've talked about today is just the tip of the iceberg as an Amazon employee. If you're overwhelmed by the sheer number of choices and moving parts associated with a new job at Amazon, interested in working with a financial advisor, please feel free to reach out to us and use us as a resource. We want to provide great education for Amazon employees and do whatever we can to help you out. Let us know if we can help, and looking forward to connecting soon. Cheers.